Wheaten. I'm trying to do like the Stewie impression, and it's not coming out very well.
Wheaten. Everybody, welcome to Literary Lushes with your host Samantha
and Megan.
And today we are discussing the sequel to Ready Player One, Ready Player Two by Ernest Cline. And if you're watching, you could see a beautiful cover of the book that Megan's holding up. Ta-da!
Yes, and the drink we made with it is a mocktail with our zero-proof tequila, which you can substitute out with real tequila, and it is called
Siren Soul.
That's what it is.
And it's a mocktail margarita, and it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Obviously inspired by the quest that the high five go on.
And the low five.
And the low five.
High five and low five. So I did good this time. I'm so proud of myself.
I'm proud of you as well.
I made notes.
If you can see the book, she put a bunch of little pink tabbies all in all the pages.
I like these pink tabbies because they don't do any damage to the book. There's little post-it notes. And then that way I didn't have to stop and write anything. I could just still keep reading and then I can go back to it.
I dig it. And I did not take notes. I know.
If you are a Patreon fan, you get to watch the uncut video of us doing these podcasts, which is really cool. You can see my dogs. Oh, you're going to come over to me now. You're going to travel? I don't think that's going to work out very well. And the cool thing is I decided not to put a green screen up this time because I have my cool
vintage video games
in the background.
With a cool floor mat.
Yes.
So I liked it. I liked the progression of Wade's character. I liked the fact that he kind of turned into like a douchebag recluse at first, and I laughed really hard when he basically admitted that he was an asshole because he would like go after and sue anybody that
said he was an asshole.
Yeah. So quick summary of the book because we're trying to get better about doing that. And if you haven't read it, spoilers ahead.
A lot.
Yep. So this is obviously the sequel to Ready Player One. So it takes place, I think, only pretty soon after Ready Player One ends. Like a year maybe?
I think it's it starts out a couple days right after.
And then kind of fast forward.
And then it fast forwards 3 years.
So Wade is living in Halliday's house. He turns into a douchebag recluse. Him and Samantha have broken up.
Yes.
He still talks to H and Shoto, but not as much as he used to. And he's basically alone. And the only time he really sees other people is when the high five has their meetings, which are virtual.
Yes.
And
I mean, H and will schedule meetings with him to hang out with him like twice a month. But even he's like, I don't know if she's just doing this out of pity or like whatever. Like, basically, he's lonely as fuck.
Yeah, and most of his interactions take place in the Oasis.
Yes.
And he finds a new invention that Halliday had created before he passed, which is a new headset that essentially puts you into like a coma state.
Yeah.
And then
it connects your cerebral.
Yeah. And it scans your brain, and essentially when you go into the Oasis, instead of having to manually move things, it's like your brain just telling your body like, hey, lift my arm, and your arm would lift. But then you can also experience and feel everything.
It's very much like the movie Gamer.
I don't know if I ever saw that.
And they have like synthetic suits, I believe, and so they can feel everything. I think that's in Gamer, or I'm making that up. But anyways.
They had that in the original, in Ready Player One, they had the suits where you can feel. But this, with the headset, you don't need anything.
It's
insane. Also dangerous because if the thing malfunctions, you could essentially become a vegetable for the rest of your life.
You get lobotomized. I
You
think
get
it's the word
lobotomized
they used.
because you are completely knocked out. So a lot of people lock themselves in closets, or they have, fancy
Yep. Safeguards. I have a tabby for that.
Yeah. And also, so basically they have to go on another quest to find the 7 shards of the siren's soul. We won't go into too much depth about that. But it all revolves around this new technology.
Yes. I found the quote.
Okay.
So the when you talk about Wade becoming rich and an asshole,
the Bill Murray quote.
The Bill Murray quote. I did mark that. Yeah. It's the Bill Murray quote, which is one of the low 5 members says to him, when you become famous, you've got like a year or 2 where you can act like a real asshole. You can't help yourself. If it happens to everybody. You got like 2 years to pull it together, or it's permanent. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then he's like, I've been rich for 3 years. She's like, yeah, well,
it's never too late to change.
It's not too late to change. And then I thought his quote back, which is, my favorite Bill Murray quote is what Wade says, is I always want to say to people who want to be rich and famous, try being rich first. See if that doesn't cover most of it. And I'm like, you're right. Because I don't know if I'd want to be famous. No. I think being rich would be more enjoyable than being rich and famous.
Yeah. I don't need to be a Kardashian. Just maybe they're like lawyer.
I don't want to be that. I don't want to know them. Well, I just want their money.
Exactly.
So yeah. So I, as usual, thoroughly enjoyed this book. It made me think a lot of Colby.
Oh, Granville from After Dinner Conversation.
Yes. And just the conversations I would want to have with him about some of these things. There's a lot of moral things in this that I was even like, I don't know what I'd fucking do.
Well, let's delve into it.
Oh, let's do this.
What?
All right. So I'm going in order on what I want. Okay. I liked this quote. So in the new Oasis, which they call Oni,
which is the fancy headset.
Yep. You can also experience other people's experience in the real world. So like
the Sims and the Rels or whatever they call
them. If like Tony Hawk wanted to do
skating down like a half pipe.
Yeah, he puts the headset on, he starts it up, and he does all this. And then you can buy that experience and be Tony doing all these. So you feel everything he's feeling. You're seeing everything.
With none of the side effects.
None of the side effects. So if he breaks his leg, you feel like just like a flick. Like, I mean, you're fine. But so it's really cool. And then of course, because
people are people.
People are people. Sex is also an experience that you can experience. And so when Wade before he even tells anybody about this, like when he's first experiencing this, he goes and he starts doing the experiences, and then he noticed there's sex files, and he's like, I'm not gonna do that.
But he does later.
He does later.
But
he doesn't, because at this point he's with Samantha. Not you, but the other one.
Well, yeah, no.
He's with Samantha, and he's like, I stopped when I searched in series files named sex-m-phony. I wasn't ready for all that. I was still truly madly deep in love with Samantha, and I was still reeling from losing my virginity to her just a few days earlier. I didn't, and this is where I marked, I didn't want to be unfaithful to her. I figured cheating was cheating, whether it was live or Memorex. And I thought that was pretty admirable.
Right, because it's not like porn.
No.
Because you're actually feeling it and experiencing it.
Yes.
Would you, assuming this was real, right? I would have to imagine, because there are celebrity sex tapes out there, I would have to imagine that this is real. There would be celebrity sexual encounters available. Would you let Ray...
I think we'd have like a top 5 that we would allow
like
each
hall
other.
Pass type?
Yeah. And it might be one of those things that we would have to experience. Both of us would have to experience it.
I mean, I would definitely be curious. Because and later in the book...
Because
yeah, because later in the book, Wade even says, this helps kind of obliterate
Yes.
the idea of gender and sex norms, because you could experience sex
as a man, as a female.
Man with man, man with woman, woman with woman, trans, any sort of combination, non-binary, orgy, threesome, whatever it is. And so it kind of just takes away that your traditional notion, because you can experience any combination.
Which I did think was kind of neat. And but I did like that she didn't know about it, and he could have easily have done it, but he was like, no. Which just shows you that this is still in his morally righteous compass days. I think after him and Samantha break up, I think it kind of goes back to being a butthole. Which I could do a compare and contrast of him and Halliday.
Oh my gosh.
All day. So many similarities. But anyways.
Yeah.
There's a point in that where I come back to that. So I did like the cheating line. I was like, that was really sweet. And I'm like, and I feel like that would have to be a thing. A lot of relationships, like when you're in a relationship, we're like, all right, we're going to talk about this. And we're going to have to figure out we're going to have to figure out what's a line.
But then you also have to wonder too, because so many of the people are spending so much time on the Oasis. I mean, I guess you still would have real world relationships, but then you would just hang out most of the time.
Yeah. I think this would solve two of their world problems. Overpopulation is obviously one of their problems right now. Mm-hmm. So that would stop that. Hopefully. Because of all the accidental oopsies. Because you wouldn't just go out to a bar to randomly hook up with a guy. You can just do it in the Oasis and no consequences. Which is a consequence thing. It's another tab of mine. Then the other thing is the sexual transmitted diseases. Mm-hmm. Getting rid of that too. Because, which there's more in the disease part that I'll get to in that part too. I'm so proud of myself. I'm so proud of you. But
and now Samantha never uses one of these new headsets. She's against it.
She uploads herself
at the end.
Spoiler.
But yeah, but she never. But that's the only reason. If that wasn't possible, I don't think she would have ever even used it.
No.
Would you have tried it out? I feel like I definitely wouldn't have tried it out at first.
I go back and forth because I can see how it can be super addictive.
But you also have to remember that most people were already on the Oasis. So it's basically just like, I kind of equated it as like a new phone coming out. Like we already all use our phones. We're already on our phones so many hours of the day. And it's a brand new phone that's coming out, and it makes, I don't even know what kind of technology it would be. But I'm like, I never get the new phone when it comes out. I'm always like 3 or 4 versions behind. So I probably wouldn't get it right away.
I was equating as the old Oasis platform is like a video game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not really huge into video games. Like I'll play them, but I can play them for 30 minutes and then be done the rest of the day. Where I know where people will spend hours, like 15 hours on these.
But
things.
Also you have a decent life. Most of these people, their lives are just utter shit.
Right.
And they
need an escape. Yeah. But if you could immerse yourself in something like that, and then and that's another tab, I guess I can go skip to it. Right now, what we're facing in real world problems, the pandemic, we can't travel.
No.
So this would solve that problem where I could travel and it'd be completely safe. And I would get to experience everything like I was really there.
Right. And especially if you had the headset on.
Especially if you have a headset on. And then the fact that parties being canceled, I could have a baby shower and everybody could be there and it not be a scary thing. Mm-hmm. So it was like, there's a lot of neat things. Like today, like for right now, I would see me signing up for it. And then social interaction, you would get that. The hugging, the the high fives, there's a part I marked in here about shaking hands, which would be really cool. I don't know if there wasn't a pandemic, if I would use it as much.
Oasis in general or the headset?
The headset.
The headset.
I don't know if I would use it as much. It might be one of those things like if I have a day off, I'll be like, oh, I will do one of these or.
But then again, it's also like, it is video games, but there's so many planets that you would want to explore. Like when they were talking about like all the Tolkien planets.
Yeah.
And the Prince planet and the John Hughes planet. It's like, oh man. I'm like, okay, so there's got to be like a Backstreet Boy planet. There's got to be like everything. A Tim Burton planet. There's got to be like,
like Disney. Just and I.
Megan would be at the Disney planet, and I'd be at the Tim Burton planet.
Disney all day. No, I don't know what I would. It'd really be the Barnes and Noble.
The Barnes and Noble planet.
I'm such a nerd. So I could see how I could be easily addicted to it. And then I know my real life would suffer. But I mean, you're still building those experiences like they were real life.
Right.
But I don't know. It just seems, it seems like a very, I kind of get where Artemis is going with all this. Because if you're so focused on this virtual world, you're not worried about
the real
world.
Which Wade and Shoto kind of plan for that because they have that spaceship. But it's like their plan B because they think the Earth is already.
Well, and then Wade is the only one that I know of that makes a point to exercise.
Yep. Every day he spends like 2 hours a day exercising because he spends 12 hours a day in the Oasis.
Yeah.
But with his fancy rig, it moves his body.
But just to keep it from rigor mortis, or not rigor mortis, from like bed sores, but it's still you don't have to do that. Yeah. You don't have to exercise every day. So like I feel like obesity would climb through, but then you're not eating either.
Well, and also a lot of people are poor and they don't have even the money to like eat. So they're malnourished.
It's one of those things where it goes back and forth. And I think I liked how they had the 12-hour.
Well, that was for your brain for
safety reasons. But I think that would be a great thing for them to be like, we're limiting. You can only do this 6 hours a day. But
12.
No, I'm saying that you should even limit it to 6. And then not to mention, you have to completely empty your bowels before you get in this thing. How? One, is that healthy?
Yeah.
It just seems insane, like pushing it all, like just forcing everything out.
You don't
like
force it.
Well, I mean, what if you ain't gotta go?
You don't have to go.
I'm imagining these people take like.
I mean, I'm sure they sit there for a while.
The Hunger Game things that make them puke so they can keep eating. That's what I'm imagining.
No, I imagine that they probably just, I mean, have a timed schedule. And they have their schedule and their body's used to it. And I'm sure at first they kind of just
like every hour, even
on the toilet, But yeah,
even before I was pregnant.
But if you're not drinking for 12 hours at a time and you're only drinking for like within a 4-hour period, you probably pee a lot. But then, you know what I mean?
I guess.
And you could survive for days without food and a couple days without water. So you can survive 12 hours without eating or drinking.
This I thought, so for less than the cost of iced coffee, you could experience safely just about anything. One of the things I thought was interesting, because they said you can do any kind of food, you can have any kind of sex, drugs. And
I would definitely try.
I was like, okay, I know you guys are going to call me a square already. I've never done any.
Oh my God, you square.
Drugs that were not prescribed to me. And even when they even when they were prescribed, like they gave me such a low dose that really, and then even some of it was like, I didn't take all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm pretty sure I still have medicine from my surgery that I still haven't taken. That'll probably expire before, whatever. But it was just an interesting concept. I'm like, yeah, I would try, because I don't know if I ever told you this story, but in 5th grade, we had a program called DARE.
Doesn't everybody?
I don't know, but it stands for drug abuse.
Resistant? No, that's not right. Resistance education? Drug abuse, something education.
I don't know. I just
drug awareness?
Maybe. I actually remember the song we had to sing. That one with D, I won't do drugs. A, won't have an attitude. R, I will. No, you didn't have that song.
I definitely had a DARE program, but we didn't have that song. And if we did, I blocked it out of my memory.
R, I will respect myself. E, I will educate me. We all had to sing it to our parents, and we had to wear like our DARE shirts. Anyways, no,
I think that might have just been a you thing because
we had our elementary. Anyways, the point of the story. At one point, we had a police officer come and talk to our class about drugs.
We did too. We had Officer Joe.
I don't remember the officer's name. He had a big old board that had every drug. I don't think there's real drugs. They might have been like, I don't know, fake ones.
I would hope he wouldn't bring real drugs to an elementary school.
But he had like the different pills. So like we saw what an ecstasy pill looks like, and like just so we knew, so we weren't like
sure some kids took real good notes.
But then he was talking, and then someone asked, I mean, this guy was straight up honest, like real brutally honest. And someone said something about heroin, and he goes, real talk, heroin is the most magical thing that you will ever experience in your life. The first time you do it. After that, you will never feel that feeling again, but you will keep trying to feel it again. And that's how people with heroin overdose, because they think if they double it, they'll get that feeling again. And he's like, it's better than sex. It's better than winning the lotto. It's amazing. And I'm like, well, now I want to know what that's like. And that's you go in knowing.
And that's what Wade's mom died of.
And I was like, damn. Because I would say on my deathbed, like if I'm ever like seriously on my deathbed, I want someone to give me meth or not heroin.
You want to do meth?
I want not meth. I want to do heroin.
Meth.
No, I want heroin. Just because I'm on my deathbed. Like,
right.
At that point, I'm not going to develop an addiction.
Well, it's like the psychedelic drugs. It's like they intrigue me, but I'm also terrified.
Oh, absolutely will not try them.
But I would try them in the Oasis.
But I would try them in the Oasis.
Mm-hmm.
And I did have that marked later in the book. So at the end, he talks about his mom and about how for years, because she overdosed on heroin,
mm-hmm.
and he avoided the whole drug section, especially heroin.
Right.
And he said for years, and then he finally was like, no, I want to know
what she felt, what she was seeking.
What could make her want to leave
mm-hmm.
me and overdose on this.
Right.
And I couldn't even imagine that pain. And so he did try it safely.
Right.
But then
with the Ani set.
At one point they talked about how when they do a video for an experience, they make sure there's no crimes in it.
Right.
So
it gets filtered.
Yeah. So like no killing or snuff films or anything like that. And I'm like, okay, but drugs aren't illegal? I was very confused, and then I was like, but I guess it makes it safer.
It's not like them buying drugs. Do you know what I mean? It's, I guess, doing drugs are illegal, but I think it's like, you know what I mean? Like you said, it's not murder, it's not rape, it's not arson. You're not committing a crime against somebody else. You're willingly injecting it or doing it to yourself.
Yeah, and then maybe it brings down the drug usage rate.
Right.
Except for unless you're trying to make money, because then you also get, the Oasis gets 20%. But you keep the rest.
But you only have to upload that once, and then people use
but if you do different drugs,
but
or have different experiences,
you're probably doing the drugs anyway. So
this is very true.
Yeah.
But so I did mark that without worrying about addiction, calories, or consequences.
Calories.
Mm-hmm. So I thought that would be neat to helping with addiction. Because while your real body is going through withdrawals, maybe your mind can be slowly weaning off of it and not feeling the withdrawal effects of your body.
Which is interesting, because I wonder, though, if it would almost prolong the effect because your mind feels like it hasn't kicked the habit yet. You know what I mean? Like the whole mind over matter thing. But it's like if your mind still thinks you're on it.
But if you substitute that addiction with the Oasis addiction.
But that's what I mean.
Of other experiences.
No, but that's what I mean. Is like then you wake up and like for that 12 hours you were high as fuck. So it's like, yeah, your body's physically detoxing, but your mind
But I'm saying
isn't.
if you can slowly cut back in
that's true.
Oasis while your body's doing the real hard work,
Yeah.
and then you can substitute, because like, isn't that basically what AA is? It's another form of addiction. It's a safe addiction. It's like replacing.
Because addicts usually just replace one addiction with another.
You choose a safer addiction.
Mm-hmm. Like shopping or donuts.
Or exercising.
Or crack cocaine. What did you think about the whole... So what... the quest that they go on is... Let's see. Let me start from the beginning. So
it's very complicated.
Yeah. Og, co-creator of the Oasis, his wife, Kira, was heavily involved in the creation of the Oasis. And Halliday was in love with her, but was like a recluse and kind of a moron when it comes to the human emotion. And he always loved her from afar. And so creepily. And she liked him as a friend, but was in love with Og. And unbeknownst to her or Og, spoiler alert, Halliday copied her consciousness. So when you put on the Omni headset, every time you log on, it basically does a complete scan of your consciousness and uploads it onto the Oasis server. Reminded me of the movie Chappie. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Mm-mm.
It reminded me of like the Bobaverse. It reminded me of a Black Mirror episode. And so he had her use it to just test it out without her knowing that was going to happen. And then he's
so fucked up.
So then he creates a copy of her after she passes away in the Oasis, but in a secluded simulation. So it's literally just her. And he would go and talk to her while he was still alive. And finally he realized that was fucked up, what he did.
Yep.
And so
after she explained to him how fucked up it was.
Right. And so he creates a second Easter egg hunt that you have to find the 7 shards to make whole her soul. And so he has these 7 shards that are hidden throughout Oasis based on her involvement of creating the Oasis. And when you combine all of them, it releases her avatar from her secluded environment into the Oasis, along with the resurrection rod, which would allow you to resurrect anybody who's used an Omni headset into the Oasis, thereby rendering them immortal in the Oasis. And that is how Sam's grandma comes back.
Yes. It was very heavy.
And it was very Bobaverse.
It was, especially when it got to the end. I was like, this is so Bobaverse.
And it also made me laugh because they kept talking about artificial intelligence and how like 99% of human film, movies, and TV shows, that we create the artificial intelligence, it becomes too smart, and then it rebels against us.
And they had the other robots that were not able to ever do that. They were dumb. And
right. But then it just made me laugh because at the same time, it's like, well, technically all these avatars are artificial intelligence. Yeah. And then it made me think of the Bobaverse because it's like Bob is artificial intelligence, but he was like a human too. So it's just, I don't know, it was interesting.
And she even talks about how when Halliday brought her back,
Kira,
she had a moment of crisis because you're like, what the F? Because you're like, I'm this person, but I'm also not this person anymore.
Right, because it seems like, because you have all of their memories and everything up until the time that the brain was scanned. Yeah.
And then, so now you're not them because they're their body. And so it goes into the thing, like, are you really them or are you just, keystrokes? Also, I didn't think of this, but obviously Artemis did, as one of her negative thoughts about the Oni is because I saw Wade has like a protection room for when he's in his stream
like
because
a
people
secret vault, and then he has his
like
little
a bunker and like all these like crazy things. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense for him because I could see people wanting to come and kill him or revenge or whatever. And I'm like, but why would regular ordinary people need this? And then the book does say, like, I mean, because I'm just like naive, like.
And I was like, oh, you could definitely get brutally murdered.
And then they were like a breed of new breed of thieves, rapists. And I'm like, ooh, raping because you don't feel what your body's going through.
No, because you're totally basically in like a coma. Wouldn't know.
Yep. A new breed of thieves, rapists, serial killers, and organ harvesters pride on these people. And I was like, holy shit. And then I thought it was neat that like the skin suits that they had, these hotel rooms were built you can have your safe room. Mm-hmm. And I thought they call it a body locker, which I thought was a neat idea and smart. And then people made some money.
And people would set up like cameras so they could have just like a feed while they're in their oasis to see their body. Just to make sure.
Creepy,
right? Thinking. Like talk about an out of body experience. But I guess
I was a little like, oh, yeah, no. So when he was talking in the beginning about their first meeting as the co-owners, they said he walked over to me and I shook his outreached hand. Being able to shake hands without any danger of spreading diseases had always been one of the perks of Oasis. But in the old days, whatever, but felt like you weren't really shaking hands. And they were like even saying it was shaking hands had come back in vogue along with high fives, fist bumps.
I mean, it makes sense because if you're in the Oasis, there's no point in shaking someone's hand if you can't feel it.
But I just thought it was interesting because we're not shaking hands with people right now. We're not fist bumping. We're not high fiving. And
I'll fist bump because it's not palm on palm.
Yeah.
It's like you can, one of my friends who's in the film industry, he was saying that, he was curious to see if in films from 2020 forward, people would stop shaking hands.
So they think that shaking hands is going to be a thing that people don't do anymore. Like I know we used to do it as a form of respect and like introducing.
I always hated it anyway because I'm like, I do like a good crisp high five though.
I do like high fives. Anyways, I liked this.
Oh.
When.
Please continue.
Oh, they're talking about Samantha's grandmother. And when she ended up getting diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, she started using the Oni.
Right.
Because then while her body was,
dying, basically.
Not only dying, but also like in the chemotherapy, just the horribleness that it does to your body. And I said this earlier, like when you're withdrawing, she was able to go and experience the world while she was like, as your bucket list.
Right.
And I'm like, I'd totally be all about that. Like, if I was like sick and dying, I'd be like, hell's yeah, sign me up for an Oni.
Right. Nothing to lose and just all the experiences to gain.
And it lets your body rest and heal like it needs to while you're still getting those happy endorphins, which I hear are important.
I've heard.
When you're sick.
Like in Legally Blonde. Exercise makes you happy. Happy people don't kill people.
No, they don't. Unless you're taking steroids. But then you're not happy because then you're angry. Because the steroids make you angry. And give you small balls. I really should wrote down shit. I can't deny. Oh. That's what it was. Okay. They said how there had been super numerous studies.
Super numerous.
Well, they say numerous studies, but I threw in super in there. That have shown drastic increase in empathy and environmental conservation among daily Oni users, along with an overwhelming drop in racist, sexist, and homophobic ideology, which is what we were saying earlier. But it's like everything, and it says they saw a huge drop in hate crimes because you can walk a mile in someone else's shoe. You literally can walk a mile in someone else's shoe.
Just imagine if you could experience like what George Floyd went through.
Yeah. Just anything, anybody. just anything or anybody. And I was just like, that would be amazing. And then they were saying also, just having the crime rates drop. And then she's like, okay, but when half of your population is zombified, and then she's going on and on. I'm like, okay, but I feel like you're missing some of this because.
But I get where Artemis/Samantha was coming from, because if everybody's just focused on Oasis and nobody's caring about their real world, their real world was in so much peril, it wouldn't have survived for much longer.
That's why I think if they were able to limit the timing that they were allowed to even be on this even more, like if you could drop it from 12 hours to 6.
I mean, but at the end of the day, GGS is still a money-making corporation. So I think 12 is, the max they could do. And it's like, I'm sure not everybody used it for the full 12 hours, just like gaming. Like, I'm sure there's people who would hop on it for 12 hours, hop out of that, and then get into their old school suit and helmet and go back on.
Yeah, especially if you have work.
Yeah, there's the people who would probably just do it for the 12. And then there's the people who probably would just use it for a couple hours at a time. Or not even have the Ani headset,
Yes. So that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about the tolls that Halliday's heir had to pay, which were actually just flashbacks of Kira's memory?
I don't know if I would have called them. Well, at first I was like, I wouldn't have called, because I'm like reading this. I'm like, these aren't tolls. Like, this is nothing to pay. Like, to really, but then.
It was an emotional toll.
But then it was an emotional toll and like a psychological one, because he idolized Halliday.
Mm-hmm.
He defended him. And I think I have that marked somewhere in here.
Halliday turned out to be kind of a creep.
Oh my God. I think they said psychopath. I actually have that somewhere. Where they say he's a fucking psychopath. Ah, there we go.
Him or Anna?
Sociopath. Halliday. Yeah. I had to bite my tongue to prevent myself from leaping to Halliday's defense. The man had been far from perfect, but he'd given us our entire world. Sociopath seemed harsh, but downright blasphemous. And then I'm like, but really though, I don't know. He seemed kind of fucking crazy.
I mean, I don't know if he was sociopathic. I think it was more of just he was one of those people who was so intelligent. He didn't know social cue. He might have been a little bit on the spectrum, perhaps, and he just didn't empathize. He didn't have any empathy. He didn't know how to engage or empathize with other humans. I don't know if that would make him a sociopath. Which also reminded me a lot of Wade. I mean, Wade wasn't at the same extent, but stalking Samantha after they broke up. I mean, we all Facebook stalk occasionally exes, but and he just had, it was a little more different. That's like following them behind in a car. But he did have all that power right there. Like, imagine if you had the ability to. I have the ability to get in my car and go sit in their bushes, but I don't do that. But that's very different than just having the ability to like pull something up on your computer screen and see everything that they've been doing. Okay, but I also don't do it every day. Like, I have the ability to go look up all my exes in a happy relationship. So, exactly. I mean, that probably has a thing to it. But I don't know. The fact that he was really antisocial in the real world. Mm-hmm. He really also didn't have anybody. But I feel like had he been more like Artemis, doing more philanthropy, I can never say that word. Don't laugh at me. Philanthropic efforts. Yes. If he had done more of that, he might have made friends, like real friends. But he did do his own thing a little bit, but it was more like it was like, here's my money. But like he had gone to galas or gone to things like in real life or gone. But I don't even think were there galas? I don't think so. Oh, they had to have lunches or some form of things because Artemis went to these things.
She went and talked to people, and she went and got people to care and did this and that. And I just feel like, I mean, how else did H meet her girl, or Shoto meet his wife?
Could have been just on the Oasis and they met in real life.
But I mean, he could have met plenty of other people. But I feel like he had all this money and he didn't do anything with it other than upgrade his computer shit, and it just drove me nuts.
No, I mean, he definitely, because they talk about in the beginning about the couple charities he set up, then him and Shoto made that ship, and they had all the frozen embryos.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like more like enjoying life. Like,
oh yeah, I mean, I think first of all, I think he was overwhelmed with his sudden sense of wealth. You know, and I also think he probably felt a little bit guilty because it came at such a cost.
This is true.
And, you know, he was also still reeling from his breakup with Sam, which was his first and only, real human relationship besides his mom. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I think he had like a lot to unpack. What do you think about the fact that Og knew basically all along, because he got that email after Halliday died that was like, hey, by the way, I fucked up. I copied your wife's consciousness and I'm going to use her old D&D campaign so you or my heir can release her.
I can understand his reluctance
mm-hmm.
to go find her because, again, it's not her. They spent majority of their time in the real world.
Right.
It would be like if we got this kind of technology now, and then, Ray and I worked on it, did all these cool things, but we spent still more time in the real world. I think he knew he would have to basically live in this virtual reality in order to see her. And I think for him, knowing that it's not really her, I think the way he did it made sense, because for an immortal human being, for them to be locked away for 10 years?
Probably longer than that.
How long did she die? Like 50? Hell, we'll say 50 years. 50 years to an immortal is nothing. Even remember Bob from the Bobiverse was like,
oh yeah, they even say
blinking.
It in the end, like, oh yeah, it's going to take us decades to get anywhere, but we have time.
Yeah, so to Og, I could see him being like, for her, that's not long. So, and he even says that to Wade at the end. He's like, if she wants me there, you can upload my consciousness. You can bring me back. Because it's not bringing him back. Like, in his mind, he's thinking him and his real wife are dead. And they're in whatever heaven or whatever they believe in. They're together. Their AIs are together. It's not real. I think that's where he was coming from. I think it would hurt too much to see her
and not be able to
be like, you're not really her. It's just another game.
It must have been such a mind fuck for him to get those first couple shards.
Oh, that must have been heartbreaking. Ugh, so horrible. Ugh.
I know.
I was like, I cried at one point. There's a couple I marked.
What do you think about the fact that Anorak, basically when the avatars died, he just had them in this like stasis?
That was so fucked up and creepy.
I mean, it's less fucked up.
We never find out what they were doing either.
They were just in like this like sleep state.
But I'm like,
so probably just like they thought that they were like sleeping, but it's better than the alternative of them like dying.
This is true. This is a random question. Because towards the one thing, Artemis turned Wade into a wolf and she turned into a bat.
Yep.
If you're going to be turned into any animal and feel everything they feel and actually feel like that animal, which animal would you be? Temporarily, of course.
No, not forever.
Not forever. Temporarily.
I would probably want to maybe pick like an animal that could like breathe or survive underwater, just to see what that would be like. That would be pretty cool. Because like flying would be cool too, but I feel like you could simulate flying You know what I mean?
But you can simulate being underwater with a scuba tank.
Yeah, but it's still not the same, and you can't go deep. Like you couldn't go to like if you were like a giant squid, you could go like all the way down.
I was thinking something like a cheetah where you could just run really, really fast.
I mean, I run slow.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I feel like,
and I can drive fast, so I can imagine what running fast would be like.
So we're gonna think about that. Maybe we'll put a poll up there or something next week.
I think I would do like a deep sea creature just to see what that was all about. Something completely different than I would ever be able to fathom. You know what I mean? Because it's like we fly in planes, we drive in cars, so I know it's like to go fast. I know what it's like to be up high. You know. Either that or something totally random, like in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, when they're like the size of ants, you know, like become like an ant and see what it's like to be super fucking strong, but so tiny.
Yeah. And see how crazy big the world looks.
Yeah. Something like that, where it would be just totally different.
They talk about the two best friends, Halliday and Og, fighting.
Friends. Oh my God. That was
and then how people used to wonder who
would win in a fight.
Who would win in a fight, Og or Halliday? And I was like, Og. But then it's like not just in real life, but like they're avatars.
They're avatars who are indestructible.
Which Halliday obviously spent more time in the Oasis and had more time to build up his character. I'm assuming it's like World of Warcraft. You have like, so the more you play, the more you build up.
Yeah, it seemed like it was a mix of like World of Warcraft, but like also D&D.
Yeah.
Because you had like spells and save rolls.
Not that I played either of those, so I'm kind of just going off TV and
played both.
Pop culture kind of stuff. But it got me thinking, in a fight, in IRL, between you and me, who would win? And I'm like, Samantha would kick my ass.
Definitely. Unless you like fought dirty and like threw sand in my eyes or something.
I didn't even think then. I'm like, this bitch is over here taking kickboxing classes, and now she's doing yoga where she can learn how to handstand. She'd probably do one of those fancy like handstand kick me in the faces kind of thing, like where you jump on your hands and just walk me across the face.
I'm also from Jersey, so I could just let my inner Jersey wrath come out.
Where I would just be there like, I slap bitch, like. So like for half a second I was like, who would win? I'm like, no, like it didn't even take a full second for me to be like, as soon as I thought of that, I was like, I
think I do have to agree that.
So for Conscious Corner, I thought a great one would be balancing your vices, whether it's alcohol, gaming, pornography, drug usage, I guess, sex, just basically anything. I mean, you can be addicted to sex from what I hear.
Be addicted to anything.
Yeah, so basically just anything that, you know, just moderate it.
Yep.
I think that's a huge important thing. I think moderate how
Moderation
much time
is key.
Yep. Exercising, I think you can overdo it.
Yes, absolutely.
So I was just thinking, you know.
So safety first, everything in moderation, treat yourself, but not too much.
Yes.
And go outside every once in a while. Get that vitamin D.
But don't stay out too long because then you get skin cancer.
Wear sunscreen. See? Balance.
Yep. It's very important in my opinion. You have to balance. And I feel like Wade didn't balance enough in the beginning. And I think in the end, it showed he did a lot more balancing.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's a dad. And
spoiler alert.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm assuming he spends a lot more time in real life now that he's got a kid.
I hope so. Well, yeah, he does because he says he puts it on for the last time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. So our next book, and I'm super stoked for this one, it is Heaven's River by Dennis E. Taylor, and it is the latest book in the Bobiverse series. The audio recording of it came out, I think, back in September, but the book print version comes out the end of January. And so I pre-ordered that sucker and I can't wait to get my grubby little hands on it. And we are in the process of trying to set up an interview with Dennis. He graciously agreed to come back for the fourth time for whatever reason.
Maybe he's like, well, finally, this is my last book. I won't have to talk to these crazy women again.
So that one will go up on February 4th.
And so if you have any questions you would like us to ask him, please send them our way. You can message us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or you can email us or contact us through our website.
Yes. Or all of the above.
Or that.
Yeah. that'll about do it, I think.
I think so too. That was a nice long episode. I had a lot to say because I felt like there was a lot of moral implications with this book. So I think there was a lot more thinking to it than some of our other books, which is more just like, we enjoyed this part and we enjoyed that. Is more like, well, how would you do this? Or what would you do in this situation? Which is always nice to stretch the brain.
Put on your thinking cap every once in a while.
Yeah. So we go from this sci-fi back to the Bopiverse.
Hell yeah, Pimp. So with that,
we like to say,
stay lively with your libations. Ooh. I think I say ooh at the end of every single one because something always happens.